Welcome to the Healing Heart Podcast, where all healing is always a matter of the heart. I'm your host, Dawna Campbell, also known as the Mind Whisperer, interviewing guest experts on all matters of healing. Welcome everybody back here to the Healing Heart Podcast, and I am your host, Dawna Campbell. My guest today is incredibly spectacular because she is a renowned leader in the field of human potential for her ability to focus on mindful, ecological living. Her unique ability to guide her clients towards this model of self-mastery in their lives, delivering them massive results, is why she is known as the Resilience Queen. She is a holistic and intuitive master empowerment life coach and facilitator, training other coaches, and is the proud owner of Resilience LLC since 2018, where she is internationally recognized as your ally for overcoming addiction. She is the author of the Change Book series, Insights into Self-Empowerment. Now, this is with Les Brown, Jim Brent, and Jim Lutz. She is an executive contributor also for Brains Magazine, where her expertise ranges anywhere from mindset to addiction to conscious leadership to health and wellness. So everyone here, let's just welcome our guest today, Kelly Bazzani. Welcome, Kelly, to the Healing Heart Podcast.
Thank you, Dawna. It's such an honor to be here, especially with you. Thank you for having me.
I'm so super excited because I know you do a lot of different things in addiction. And with the Healing Heart Podcast, of course, it's all about healing the heart because all healing is a matter of the heart. And I know that there's a lot of people out there that struggle with addiction in a lot of different ways. And this is one of your areas of expertise in how you help them and your clients transform. So before we dive into that, share with me a little bit about your background and how you got into this part with addiction, mindset, health and wellness, recovery, all of those fun details.
Yeah, I'd love to. You know, it's really funny. I never really thought I would be on this path. And so it's really interesting how I got here. I love how you mentioned addiction because, you know, addiction doesn't have to be drugs and alcohol. It can be addictive behaviors. It can be eating. It can be gambling. Now it's our cell phones, right? Anything that we get unconscious or disconnected from can lead to an addictive behavior. So ever since I was, as long as I can remember, really, I felt things very deeply and I needed to always overdo. My mom would always say I would go out and even shoot baskets in the front yard and I would make 10 free throws and she'd be like, come in, honey. And I'd be like, no, I can't stop until I get 50 in a row. So I was always feeling, you know, not good enough with whatever I did. And that led to feelings of perfectionism and eating disorders and having to overachieve. And so really early on, I went to Arizona State and I got my bachelor's of science in nursing. That's how I started my career. And I was president of the College Council of Nursing Students and 4.0, but nobody really knew that I was suppressing all of that with alcoholism. And I moved home with my parents my sophomore year because of that. And so I moved out to the Bay Area to work at the hospital that my grandmother worked at. And I broke my back when I was 26 years old lifting a patient. And that set me on a trajectory up until now of this path of addiction. And what happened was during my second surgery, the surgeon severed a nerve in my spine and I couldn't walk from the waist down. I couldn't move my legs. And that set me from bouts of depression to severe anxieties to post-traumatic stress to. And what I later learned was that I was using those prescription medications more for the emotional pain than I was for the physical pain. And as I went through this journey, I really made poor, abysmal choices, got behind the wheel of a car, got DUIs, and realized I was just surviving, not thriving. I was just existing. And I was burying all of that shame and guilt. And my mindset was, why is all this happening to me?
Right.
And I can't imagine having a conversation with me back then. I did a podcast with my mom. We did the two sides of the addiction coin, and you just couldn't have really conversations with me back then. And so I was burying all of that. The alcohol and drugs were but a symptom of all the layers underneath of the emotional healing of what I needed to be healed in my emotional body. And so 8 years later, at rehab after rehab, I was homeless. I was living in my car. I was unemployable. I had surrendered my nursing license. I had lost that identity of Nurse Kelly. I was facing prison. I had all these things going on for me. And I had my spiritual awakening in jail. And everyone's like, well, how does that really happen? And I was judging my cellmate in there. She was in there for first-degree murder. And I was like, why? You know, I'm only in here for DUIs. Why am I in here with this murderer? And my higher power, spirit, source, you know, whatever you want to name it for yourself, said to me, you know, if you would have hit a child or you would have hit a family, you'd be in here doing the same amount of time. So what makes you think you're any better? And in that moment, I kind of had this huge ego death and went into a heart space. And at that moment, I realized I wanted to dedicate the rest of my life doing the work that I'm doing. All of the women that were in that jail were in there for mental health, addiction, or something like that. So I called my sponsor in recovery. I was a year clean at that time, and had her send me my recovery materials and started taking those women. We were in our cells for 23 hours and out for one in the yard. And I started taking them through the recovery steps. And then I just started getting into this work and figuring out like what needed to be healed in my emotional body. And through that experience, I realized that all this was happening for me to gain experience on this journey of healing, and not to me, if I was willing to open my heart space and my soul to it. And so I went back to school. I got my master's degree in marriage family therapy, and became an addiction specialist. And then I went and started taking self-mastery courses and really got underneath all that shame and guilt. And so instead of looking at it as like, I don't want to tell my story, which was very selfish, I started sharing my story and came from this place of how can I help people and turn it into my truest unique gift to the world. And so I started posting, you know, my story on online and on my website, and started sharing, and then Resilience was born.
I absolutely love that there, because, you know, we do have to have that resilience. And I think it's in the sharing of the story, although we have our awakening moment, but it's in the sharing of the story, I think, where we find our silver lining gifts.
Yeah.
And it's the gifts not only for ourselves, but that we get to offer other people. My case, I was in a situation where there was domestic violence. There was a day I almost died. And then in the sharing of the story, someone had asked me a question, and it was like, well, what I really learned was that person isn't here. They're dead. They've crossed over, but I am. So I'm worthy to live this life.
Yes.
And I'm worthy to live it abundantly and prosperously. And I had this huge epiphany aha moment, one of those silver lining gifts. So for you, in sharing your story with others, what were some of the silver lining gifts that you found for yourself?
Gosh, Dawna, there's so many, you know, I mean, just like you said, as I started sharing my story, I realized my story is about me, but it's not for me. And so as I started to share, it was like, oh my goodness, so many people were coming, you know, in my coaching. I realized that in my 42 years on this earth, there's not something my client has come to me with that I haven't experienced. And so you know, I've had my fiance die in alcoholism, you know, I was sexually assaulted in jail. I've had all these things happen, but I don't have I look at every moment in my life, and I'm grateful for each one because it's led me to being here on this podcast with you. Yes. So the silver lining is that through me experiencing it, then I get to be able to empathize and heal and shift with my clients. Because when they come to me and they're like, how can I ever, you know, get over this? Or how can I ever? And I said, we will do it together, because we do recover. I'm part of that with you. You know, look at this. So how do we look at your situation? And how do we learn to ask ourselves better questions about it? You know, why is it so important to you, and why does it matter? So when we start to heal the emotional body, I look at all the silver linings. I mean, there are so many times in my addiction that I shouldn't be here, like you say. And I don't have, you know, I go and speak at recovery meetings. I go do all of these things, and I'm so blessed to be here. And there's always so much more healing to do. So when I'm working with my clients, when I say, I'll be talking to them, I'm like, oh, you're compartmentalizing. And I'm like, you know what? I am too. So why don't we do this assignment together and meet back up and share what we've learned together? So there's so many gifts that we can, that's why, I mean, behind me, you see, it's life's gift. We give life to each other. It's so reciprocal. And so I just look at what I'm able to do in my coaching and how I'm able to share, you know, then I get contacted. Will you come into the schools and talk to our kids about how they can make conscious choices? Absolutely. Right. So, I mean, I just get to keep sharing these gifts. So instead of looking at my past as like, I open my life to my past. I'm like, what do you want to know? So that I can take you through it in a shorter amount of time with less pain. Because of the lessons that I've learned. So there's so many silver linings.
There is so many and so many, and some of them life-changing. And then we can use those to facilitate a lot with our clients and all the other people that we meet and come across in our paths. We're going to take that quick sponsor break here. When we come back, we're going to dive a little bit deeper here with Kelly. We're going to learn a little bit more about how she works with her clients, some of the transformations that they go through, and some of the projects she is working on. So hold on. Get what you always wanted. Abundant life is possible. Transform your lifestyle in just weeks with the most innovative system developed for heart-centered business professionals who seek change today. You are one step away from creating infinite prosperity, happiness, and love. Grab your bonus link now that's in the show notes. All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Healing Heart Podcast. And our guest today is Kelly Bazzani, and she is an intuitive and holistic master empowerment life coach facilitator, helping her clients all around the world overcome addiction, and guides a lot of her clients towards the model of self-mastery in their own lives. So I want to know a little bit more about what you do with your clients and how you help them overcome addictive patterns.
Yes, I'd love to share that. So kind of what we were talking about in the last segment is, in order to truly love who you are, you can't hate the experiences that shaped you. So when I have my clients come to me, they're kind of stuck in that fixed thought pattern. And so it's really hard to, if you identify yourself as like, that's just the way that I am, then it doesn't leave really any room for you to go one way or the other, right? So we kind of start, where I start with them is like, what are your beliefs? I kind of go off of a be, do, have model. Your be are your beliefs, your do is the action you're taking, and your have are the results. So if your beliefs are, you know, I'm not good enough, or I'm a failure, or I'm too damaged to be loved, or things like that, and you're taking action on that, your results probably aren't really what you're wanting to have. Whereas if your beliefs are, you know, I'm abundant and I'm beautiful and I'm resilient and I'm, you know, worthy of love, and you take action on that, your results are probably going to look a little bit different. So I like to start with that, and then we can go from being kind of the victim to going up and taking personal accountability for our lives. I'm a big believer of accountability, and my clients resist that with me a little bit, but I also say what we resist persists, and what we fear will continue to appear. So I always say to them, how are you contributing to your problem by either your reaction when the problem happens or your inaction when the problem is happening? So we kind of look at all those different kinds of things, because I want my clients to learn how to factually respond to things instead of emotionally react to things in their life, because that leads to a lot of overwhelm and addiction. For me, even being in recovery now for over 14 years, I can still get really back into those addictive behaviors if I'm not consciously aware of what's going on, because at any moment I'm creating connection or disconnection with myself or other people if I'm not practicing that consciousness. So once we establish kind of those beliefs, then I go into, as a result of those beliefs, what are the behaviors? So if you're operating out of your belief systems of I'm not worthy or I'm too damaged to be loved, what are the behaviors that result is that? Do you emotionally withdraw? Do you procrastinate? Do you what happens, and how is it affecting your life in a negative way? So we get really deep on that. And once we're able to shift that in the paradigm, because if one thing's out of whack in your paradigm, everything else is going to be out of whack in all the other paradigms, then we can start to manifest your intrinsic motivators, because a lot of times people are seeking external validation. Well, I want my spouse to be proud of me, or I want my dad to acknowledge me. Well, you're never true. I'll be happy when. No, let's be happy right now. Internally, happiness is an inside job. And so let's look at your why. Intrinsic motivation will lead to that longevity and that sustainability based on your beliefs. So whatever you're not getting from your spouse or your mother or your father, let's give it to yourself. Do you need acknowledgement? Do you need love? Do you need support? And let's give that an acknowledgement, love to yourself. Let's reparent yourself based on your new belief system, not the one that was created for you back at the age of 0 to 6 that you've been operating out of for 40 something years. That's not giving you the results you want. And let's start repracticing that, not looking at the whole staircase, but like one little step at a time. And that's kind of like a little synopsis of where we start with that, because it took a long time to get us into those addictions or addictive behaviors, right? So it's going to take a lot. They want instant, us addicts, we want instant results, so it's going to take a little bit of time to practice those to create that sustainability and longevity.
Yes, absolutely. And when you do work with your clients and they understand and that everything is on the inside, including your own happiness, what do you see as the result for that client over time? Because it does come from the inside of them. What did they receive by working with you?
It is magical. It is magical because they stop giving their power away to everything on the outside and they step into their power. It reminds me of the Wizard of Oz. I'm looking at it right in my office. Like, you've always had the power, my dear. You've always had the power. It's always been within you, because none of the answers are outside.
Oh, they never are.
They never are outside. They're always inside of you. We are equipped. We place so many limitations on ourselves. And so I do a lot of questioning with them, when they're like, well, I could never make that much money. Well, I could never be and I'm like, I just have one quick question. Who's telling you that?
Right.
Well, I am.
Yes.
Oh, well, how true is that really? And who would you be without that belief? So just as easily as you created that belief for yourself and placed limitations on yourself, you could just as easily believe the other way, and it takes way less energy and creates so much more positivity in your life. And I like, I think of Don Miguel Ruiz. He says, it's like coming into a party with 200 people and everybody else is drinking and you're sober. And you're like, oh, it's like the light bulb comes on and you're not judging those other people for drinking, but you're like, you have compassion because you were once drunk too, but you have the answer now. And you're like, I don't have to believe that belief system anymore or that way of that world living. I can create my own beliefs based on everything inside of me. And it's just so freeing. It creates that inner freedom. You can release yourself from the confines of your mental prison that you've created. So people are like, oh, when I die, I go to hell or whatever. No, you create your own hell right here on earth.
Exactly.
So
it's always here. It's always in the moment. It's always in the present. So I know that you are also an author of a book that you've been featured in with a lot of other amazing people, the Change Book series, Insights into Self-Empowerment. So give us a little bit about the book here as we wrap up and how people can get in contact with you.
Yeah, so I did the Change book, co-authored with Les Brown and Jim Britton, Jim Lutz, and 20 amazingly talented co-authors. And it's called, my title is Phoenix Risen and How I Became a Master Healer. And people can get in contact with me. I just launched a big, beautiful new website, www.kellybazzani.com. And so please get a hold of me if you know you yourself or anybody who's struggling in addiction. And right now I'm specializing in coaching coaches or counseling counselors or nursing nurses that are in recovery. I'm seeing a lot of that since the pandemic. So I'd be honored to assist anybody on their journey of healing.
All right. I absolutely love that. And we're going to be sharing all of her social media links and how to get in touch with Kelly in the show notes. So make sure you guys grab those and do a shout out on social media as well for her. And if you or somebody that you know is struggling with addiction, definitely just get a hold of Kelly because she can truly help with all of you. Any last closing words, Kelly?
No, I have such an honor, and, you don't have to suffer in silence. Emotional pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. So we're always here. We do recover. And I am here to guide and lead the light and shine on. Carl Jung says, no tree can go to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell. So, the dark truly led me to light again. So if you're suffering in silence, please reach out. There are so many resources available, and I can guide you to all of them.
All right, that was truly, truly beautiful there, and so much truth and wisdom. Okay, so thank you everybody for here listening to the Healing Heart podcast with our guest, the Resilience Queen, Miss Kelly. And for everyone, just remember to always go and create that beautiful heart.
Thank you, Dawna.